Hi everyone, today let's talk about Jerome Powell, then we'll get into the data, then we'll get into the charts, then we'll take a look at my abysmal results and my thoughts going into tomorrow's session. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day that the markets are open as well as Sundays, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So Fed Powell came out and said inflation is too high again, and he was quite hawkish. He has not been parroting any of the things that the other Fed governors have been talking about. And he said he remains resolute to get to that 2% mandate. He has not shifted it. There's been some talks where the Fed might raise their goal to around 3%, but he says inflation is still too high. And that, of course, he is still waiting for more data. We've only had a few months of good data. And of course, we saw an uptick of inflation, which is not great. We see the economy still doing well. We see lots of jobs still out there on the market, low unemployment. So the Fed is going to continue to do its thing. And the market did not like this. Of course, we have slowed inflation quite a lot, but prices are still going higher at an accelerated rate. You can see that here we were at 9% down to 3.7, but 3.7 is still nearly double 2%, which is currently the goal. And he said the economy is handling it just fine, like we talked about, and that really sent the markets into a tizzy. They pushed much lower and they sold off through the end of the session. We'll take a look at that on the charts. It was pretty tough trading out there, pretty volatile, and Powell did not shift his comments at all. Moving over to the economic calendar, everything today came in pretty decent except for Philly Fed. Existing home sales beat, initial jobless claims beat. Previous number was revised up just a little bit, but not much. Philly Fed manufacturing not great at 8:30. And then we had Jerome Powell speak. We talked about it. And then Fed balance sheet sold off by around 20 billion. Not a ton, but it is moving lower again. Moving over to tomorrow, basically nothing on the calendar here. Just a couple of Fed members speaking, and I don't expect them to say anything different from what Jerome Powell put out today. And then you have the federal budget at 1400. Fairly interesting, but not very impactful. Moving over to earnings, Philip Morris did okay, Union Pacific did okay, AT&T beat on both the top and bottom line. Interesting. And then for tomorrow, we have American Express. That's basically the only one that's impactful for tomorrow. Moving over to Max Payne, we are way below where I thought we would go here now. You can see that 430 put wall has basically evaporated. That is super interesting here. Now we're down to 425, which is basically where we're at right now going into tomorrow's session. I wouldn't expect that one to evaporate, but I didn't think 430 was going to evaporate either, and you can see that is the lowest put strike now after today's move. Not great. Total options, 3 million. Put call ratio still very high, but market's moving much lower. 425, very interesting. 420 absolutely should not disappear, but 425 should hold for tomorrow. Moving over to the charts, there's not much to say here. Looking at the SPY, this was a dumpster fire. You can see just how choppy it was early in the session. And then the last two hourly candles, absolute dumpster fire. Wicked the high at 431.71, broke down massively below all the EMAs and SMAs on the hourly chart. We're also below all the EMAs on the daily chart. Momentum continuing to sell off. You wouldn't expect it to find support until we get to these previous lows. Again, it might not happen all tomorrow. You can see this level pretty interesting right at these lows from the end of September and the highs from the beginning of October. You can see that here on the hourly chart as well. Critical level. That's why I do have a level there at 425.82, but we are selling off after hours, and this was a big move, tons of volume on the day, and this does not look great. Moving over to the NASDAQ, very similar thesis, big bearish day, down 1%, but it looked a lot worse. You can see on the day, very choppy, same as the SPY, last two candles, big bearish movement, big volume, big bearish momentum. Daily chart continues to roll over. You can see the volume ramping up on the day. We are at the highly traded zone and the trend. We did touch it and it held just a little bit, but right now this looks terrible, selling off even more after hours. We're almost to my next level at 358.04 after breaking 361.58. So massive move from top to bottom on the day. Again, we're in this critical area just like the SPY. If this level breaks here, though, you would expect to move down to 353.24, and that does seem possible after this setup. Big breakdown below all the EMAs and SMAs, same as the SPY. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, similar thesis. Broke down massively, took out 170.35. Still watching 167.47, but I would expect that to break at this point. Clearly weak price action. Again, going back to these prices from March, April, and May, really needs to hold this base. We are right at these bottoms already, and if that breaks down, there is basically nothing for a while, down to 164, and then after that, just nothingness. You can see going all the way back here to November of 21 was the last time we were in this price range, and it does seem possible that we could see a massive breakdown here on the IWM. Similarly on the Dow, big breakdown, took out that level, looking for 329.40 again at this previous low from October. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, Apple was down a little bit, but still holding that trend line. Very important. Tesla, massive rollover, big gap down, 9.3% on the day, right to these previous lows. And now we're watching this structure. We've been watching it a little bit with a high, lower high, and then you could argue high, lower high once again, and then this massive breakdown here right at these previous lows. It's down even more after hours. Still watching 214. Interesting, and the 200 SMA, but if that breaks here, you can see there's a lot of room till we get down to that 200 level, and then if we get to the bottom of this consolidation, that could push us all the way back into that 150 range. This is a massive drop off on Tesla, and the structure is very ugly. Moving over to Netflix and Broadcom. Netflix, the shining spot, rallied up, continued to rally here today. Got above 400 at the close, broke this next level, still looks very clean. You'd like to see it get above the 144 and 200 SMA. Massive volume, bullish momentum, looks okay. This is still a downtrend, but it does have potential to break those levels. And then Broadcom selling off over 2% on the day. Had a bullish day yesterday after the wick low on Tuesday, but now we've kind of confirmed to the downside below that highly traded zone. If it breaks 863, then you could be looking for an even bigger pullback down to the 21 around 850, and then these previous lows sitting around 820. Moving over to staples and discretionary. Staples selling off here today, but still holding that 55 EMA. Interesting. Needs to hold that level if it's going to. You still have the 21 below it, I guess, at 76.28. Certainly could hold there, but highly traded zone. Want to see it hold. Volume was up on that bearish candle. You don't like to see it, but it's still outperforming. Still had a slight bull trend here. And then discretionaries, absolute dumpster fire. We've been watching this structure with the double top. Big breakdown, took out the midpoint. Everything looks very weak here. This is leaning into that Tesla down move. Very close to taking out my next level. It did wick it here today at 153.90. If that level breaks, then we're looking at 148.89. Certainly possible we get down to that 149 area as well. This looks super, super weak, and we're breaking down quickly. Moving over to gold and transports. Gold pushing higher, breaking that level, still looks very clean, strong momentum. And the comments here today did help gold, I think, in my opinion. Transportation continues to break down. It took out this level yesterday, made a lower low here. We're at that trend. If this is going to hold, it really needs to do it now. You can see this previous consolidation going back to April and May. But if this breaks, then we're looking at 207, which would be another massive move lower here for transports. And it does seem like this structure is going to continue, in my opinion. Moving over to the 50-day and 200-day averages, you can see the 50-day average selling off once again. Momentum has now rolled over 2 days in a row. You would expect this to follow through now, in my opinion. 200-day average, similar thesis. 2 steps down, we're at these previous lows, and this could go much lower. If it takes out this point here, you can see there's a lot of open space down to that 24 area. And you can see we've moved through this area multiple times going back to April and June from 22. Zooming out here just to give you a little bit better perspective, you can see we are clearly at a very important level. It does look like we're selling off. Last time we got here, it did look similar, and we did end up holding into this rally, but right now this looks abysmal. Tried to rally, now we're selling off. And we're back into this zone. Last time we did something like this, we had a massive move lower all the way down into this 11 range. If that happens, we should expect a much bigger capitulation. Moving over to yields, 2-year yield sold off a little bit, down 1%. I think this is kind of pricing in the fact that we're not going that much higher, but we are going to stay higher for longer, which is why we're seeing that 10-year continue to rocket higher, very close to that 5% level. The question is, does anything break at 5%? And that remains to be seen. We did see regional banks start to break down a little bit last time we were in this range, but that's been kind of tempered here. But as this continues to rocket higher, the question is what happens next. Moving over to the dollar, not a lot of information here. Fell throughout the session, but equities did not really react to that down move. They're currently reacting to yields, but the dollar continues to hold in this area. No change to the range here. Moving over to JNK and TLT, both of these selling off massively here again today. As yields go higher, obviously these are going to go lower, and you can see they are making new lows as the 10-year makes new highs. Moving over to the VIX, you can see we broke out and we held at the highs. Bullish momentum, bullish RSI. At this point, you should expect a retest of this downtrend line up around 25 or 24.50, somewhere in that range. Not much to say here. Super bullish. We talked about it looking pretty bullish yesterday, but now we have a really solid follow through with big momentum. Moving over to my accounts, this was abysmal for me today. Massive losses. I tried to trade in and out of a couple of things that did not work at all, and then we ended up selling off around 1% and then even more after hours. You can see we ended up finishing around 360, and now we're down another $1.50 or so after hours, so about another 0.5% lower. And the only position I have going into tomorrow is one call up at 364, and that's almost at 100% profit already. No long positions. Everything looks massively weak. Took out a bunch of support levels. Everything looks super bearish. Let me know down in the comments section what you thought about Jerome Powell's comments or any of the charts that I talked about or that I should be watching. Is there any other way to look at this, or is it just super bearish across the board? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.